Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Bobby Hams here, and due to the production stoppages from everything going on, the latest seasons of the CW shows, Flash season 6 and Supergirl season 5 have ended early. But to fill the void left from some of these shortened series, the network decided to re-air the Crisis crossover. And personally, I didn't find it any more enjoyable than the first time I watched it. I mean, seeing it again only revealed more plot problems to me. In any case, watching Crisis did make me want to see more of John Wesley Shipp's The Flash. So with that, let's take a look at his version of the Scarlet Speedster with So let's take a look at his version of Barry Allen with CBS's The Flash from 1990. The movie opens up on Gotham, Central City, where the sewers steam and Mac tonight is laughing at this young boy being slowly followed around in a circle by two other young boys on bikes. The boy's mother shouts that they know they shouldn't be outside after dark, so he runs inside and the other two completely disappear. Then an evil motorcycle gang roars into the neighborhood, bringing their own evil background music with them. As this random bus driver works on the bus's engine in the dark and without a flashlight, how can he see anything? I guess it broke down and he couldn't get it towed to a garage. He scampers away as the gang rides by and the bus explodes. I didn't see any of the bikers toss anything into the bus, so I have to assume the driver was rigging it to blow up and use the motorcycle gang as an excuse to collect the insurance money so he could buy a flashlight. The perfect plan. This couple and their bad ADR try to head indoors as the motorcycle gang throws a tennis ball filled with absinthe that destroys their car.
God, not here.
Let's go.
Baby.
Come on, hurry. Someone's gotta do something about this.
Well, your dialogue wasn't really necessary to begin with, so it could just be, oh, you mean the car. I know a bus driver you can talk to. The gang then robbed the Central City Armory with no resistance and casually ride out. It made me wonder, does this gang rob the armory every night? From what the mother said,
You kids get in here right now! You know you are not allowed out after dark!
it sounded like they terrorize the city on a nightly basis, like the evening news. So I would think that the armory would be the best protected place in the city by now, right? Anyway, one lone police car with the slickest tires in history pursues the gang on a road that is suddenly more wet than anywhere else in the city. And with two shots of absinthe tennis balls, the gang's vendetta against vehicles on four wheels brings the night to a fiery end, which is extra sad because that cop car was going to retire in the morning. We follow the officers' deaths with the birthday of another. This is Jay and his brother Barry. Jay is an accomplished commander of the motorcycle division, and Barry is a lab guy who doesn't take kindly to his dad's dismissal of Barry not being a real cop.
Sure, lab boys are important, but real cops, work the street.
Wait a minute, movie. There was a division of motorcycles rampaging through the city. Are you suggesting that Jay is secretly their leader? Did you just give away your plot twist in the first 5 minutes? I said no gluten! Barry's nondescript girlfriend carries around her own ginseng tea bags, like everyone does. Ginseng is an aphrodisiac, so Barry says they'll skip coffee. And then Jay asks for some ginseng too because Viagra hasn't been invented yet, and Jay really wants to get the birthday sex his wife promised him 3 years ago. Dad wants to know what the police are doing about the biker gang, but Jay says,
They keep running over our roadblocks. They disappear like rats down a hole.
Right. Roadblocks. Mom hates it when Jay talks about rats at the table, but she's even angrier that Dad didn't ask for some ginseng too. Instead, he starts talking about when he was a cop and everyone loses interest, so dinner is over. Then Barry gets a page. It's the Dark Riders again, and we learn that his nondescript girlfriend is named Iris, and she has her first upcoming show.
Iris, Barry tells me you're going to have a first show.
That's right, it opens Saturday.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, what kind of work do you do? Painting? Sculpture?
Actually, it's mostly hand-tinted computer graphics.
Hand-tinted computer graphics? You mean Microsoft Paint? Dad reminds us how little he respects Barry's work in the crime lab, and Jay goes to reassure him. After thanking Jay for the moral support, Barry gives him a birthday gift and says Jay will need it for good luck in taking down the Dark Riders. Thing is, the gift was a relay medal that Barry borrowed from Jay 25 years ago but never returned.
The city relays. I used to wear this on my Letterman's jacket for good luck. God, I thought I lost it.
No, I borrowed it. Forgot to give it back.
For 25 years?
Yeah.
Cheapest present ever.
Hey, what else you have in mind?
Wait till Christmas.
Back at the armory, we see that there was more than one cop car in the police department. This reporter opens Barry's door like she's with TMZ and starts asking Barry what he can tell them about the crime scene at which he literally just arrived.
You're not with the homicide department, are you?
No. Crime lab. Want to film us pouring plaster to tire tracks?
Cut it. Let's see if we can find a real detective.
Yeah, we'll see if you can find us a real newscaster while you're at it.
Linda Park with WCCN, you're bad at your job. Barry gets to work collecting tire residue when he remembers the weather report said it was going to be cloudy with a chance of overly dramatic music. In the crime lab, Barry's unnamed co-worker muses on how the electrical storm looks to be worse than anything he's ever seen ever. Barry, meanwhile, is drawn to the storm brewing between the Central City Police Chief and Detective Munch, who is moonlighting from SVU as a talk show host. Rabbit ears. You see, back in my day, there was no internet streaming or cable T. Barry's had enough and wants to take action. He tells Julio, oh, his co-worker's name is Julio by the way, to do a bunch of tasks that makes Julio mention how late it is before proving his ADR can be just as bad as that couple or Iris.
Wait a minute, Barry. It's 10 o'clock. We're getting into some serious OT here.
Yeah, well, that's my call. Problems?
Nah, I don't have a life.
The whimsical tune used for the next couple of minutes of lab research is so confusingly 90s. It's serious work, but it's 3:35 in the morning, and they're working to bring down a murderous gang. But maybe it's not so serious because Julio fell asleep at his microscope and was awakened in a genial way. But maybe it is serious because he fell asleep with a beaker of dangerous chemicals near his face. But maybe it isn't. Barry sends him home and has to undress him for some reason, revealing a shirt that Julio must have found at a crime scene. A fashion crime scene. Barry keeps working, picking up test tubes and whatnot, unaware that the most dramatic lightning storm ever didn't appreciate the look Barry gave it earlier and followed him to the station, ready to throw down. Some lightning bolts, that is. Julio hadn't gotten far, so he's able to come rescue Barry, whose body hasn't been burned to a crisp and is visibly coursing with electricity. Julio then screams for help, apparently forgetting that it was almost 4 in the morning and there was a high chance they were the only 2 people still in the building. Maybe pick up a telephone? The next morning at the hospital, Barry feels fine, even if...
You ran the tests and they were negative, right?
Oh, the tests were negative, right. What tests? What was the doctor looking for? And where did that red shirt you're putting on come from, since you were most likely admitted to the hospital in the definitely not red shirt you were wearing the night before? Jay tries to convince Barry to take a few days off, but Barry won't hear of it. There are bad guys to catch. Iris and Barry go to a diner, and Iris is concerned about her art show.
I don't know, Barry. I just think my prices are too high.
Too high? How can you place a price on hand-tinted computer graphics? Really, it's Microsoft Paint, so how can you?
Barry.
Not thinking of herself for 1 second, she notices Barry is a little spaced out. He tells her that he could have died last night, which she finds totally hilarious. Barry was taking stock of his life, but Iris can see where he's going.
I know where this is going.
Yo, what's wrong with it?
I love you. Isn't that enough for now?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess it has to be.
Barry is disappointed with her answer and starts to leave for work, but they get into an argument.
What were you doing there at 3 o'clock in the morning anyway?
In case you haven't noticed, this police department is practically under siege.
And you're the only man on the force?
I wouldn't say the only one, but the CCPD doesn't seem to have a deep bench. There were these 2 in the cop car, and then there's Steve there, and like 4 more there in the background. We follow a random rider down into an underground hideout that looks less like a hideout for a ruthless biker gang and more like a swap meet for 90s electronics. Underground barbecue?
This is a rat burger.
Again, the music used here feels like a poor match for the atmosphere supposedly being set. Are these folks meant to be threatening or not?
Stay again.
Yeah, I had it wire transferred through Western Union. We're introduced to Rick and Lila. Lila is grateful to eat underground Western Union steak every night and no longer have to live on the street, while Rick is worried about getting caught by the cops. He's also scared of Pike, the gang's leader, and Lila gets personally offended when Rick suggests that Pike has lost his mind.
What are you talking about? The man is a genius. Hey, he takes care of us.
Yeah, where he's taking us is hell, but we ain't going. 'Cause I got this.
Rick wants to leave with Lila, and he's got the funds to help them run. The cash to make a dash, the Skrilla to make a thriller, which was a very expensive music video at the time, so that rhyme still holds up.
You my bitch! There's $300 here. It's enough to get us out of town.
$300 in 1990 Central City currency is equal to $185 million today, when you adjust for inflation. Lila tells Rick she'll go with him, but goes directly to tell Pike in a conversation that lasted all of 5 seconds before one of the most annoyingly over-the-top musical stings is used to reveal Pike. I mean, listen to this thing. What the fuck, Danny Elfman? Calm down. Yeah, that scar on his face looks really real. He gathers the gang around and reminds them that they too used to live in fear in Central City because the police could not protect them. But as far as I've seen, there's no rival gang terrorizing the streets, so these folks joined Pike's gang in order to make other citizens live in fear? What? Rick is dragged out and realizes that Pike's scar looks even more convincing close up. As punishment for skimming, the gang does the smart thing and ties Rick face down to one of the motorcycles, I'm guessing his, put an absent tennis ball on his back, and send him speeding off into the tunnel, whereupon he explodes and collapses the entrance to their lair, effectively trapping them all underground until they die from starvation and oxygen deprivation. The end. Hey, you missed a spot. Julio tells Barry that they lost a lot of evidence, and Barry finds out from his doctor that one of those tests indicated Barry suffered some kind of cell damage. The doctor didn't know what to make of it, so he sent it to Star Labs.
No, I didn't authorize that. No, I won't make an appointment.
Barry goes to grab a cup of coffee, but instead throws it against the wall, creating even more work for the cleanup crew. I guess the same day, the next day, who cares? Earl wants to walk and he won't be denied. Oh, this is Barry's dog. His name is Earl, and his name is also Earl, but he is not a dog. At the park/baseball field, Earl wants to fetch the ball and he won't be denied. That is until Barry proves he's faster than Usain Bolt and humiliates Earl in front of all the other kids. You might think Barry ate all of this food because he was extremely hungry, but he's just filming the very first mukbang video. Barry tries to get Earl in on the action to jack up those views, but Earl is still pissed off from earlier and gives him the silent treatment. While thinking about getting a new dog, Barry remembers Iris's art show and heads out. But uh-oh, he's got a flat tire. Through sheer luck, however, a city bus pulls up to the sidewalk a block away. Barry takes public transportation very seriously and runs to catch it and quickly passes it. Unable to stop, he runs to the beach where he has to be rescued from drowning by some local beachgoers. Via more bad ADR, Barry mentions to the audience that Crystal Beach is 30 miles away. Then he passes out. Being good Samaritans, the beachgoers didn't want to put his life in danger again, so they put him face down in the sand underneath an unmanned lifeguard tower. Suddenly sporting Lou Ferrigno's clothes, Barry calls Iris to explain what happened to him and asks for a ride back home, but she's too busy, giving the audience more ammo to dislike her as Barry's love interest.
Barry, I know you don't take my art very seriously, but I thought you'd at least show up.
I tried. Can you just come down here and pick me up?
You weak, pathetic fool.
Guess not.
Earl finally forgave Barry. TV dinners. Barry gets a phone call from Christina McGee at Star Labs, and they set up an appointment for the next morning, while Earl eats the rest of the TV dinners. When Barry recommends going for a walk, Earl relives the trauma from the last time and would rather lock himself in the closet than face those kids again. The next morning, Barry meets Tina and can't believe she's also wearing sunglasses. Ah yes, nothing screams scientific like purple interior lighting.
Your doctor said you didn't want to come here. You're a scientist. What are you afraid of?
Star Labs isn't exactly children's hospital, you know.
This is Children's Hospital. Tina tells Barry that most of the things he's heard about Star Labs were rumors, except for the death of the researcher last year. That's true. It was her husband. Tina is the only person who works in the lab, and it seems to have been decorated by the same contractors who worked on the bikers' hideout. Notice all the TVs. Barry runs down the list of chemicals he was working around when he was struck by lightning.
Glycerin, potassium nitrate, magnesium hydroxide, hydrochloric acid, sulfur, tannic acid, phosphorus. That's the top shelf. Now on the second shelf...
You know all that?
You know all this?
Then Tina sticks small saucers on random parts of his body and has him run on a treadmill. Systems diagnosticator? What the hell, why? Diagnostics is a real word. Barry runs faster and faster until he obliterates the treadmill, Leaving more messes for others, Barry tells Tina not to forget that spot when she's cleaning up, and finds out that he had reached 347 miles an hour before wrecking the equipment he definitely won't pay to have repaired.
What's happening to me?
You see, there comes a time in a man's life when his body goes through changes. Why bother with a real word now when resonosticator would fit the motif? Using technology straight from the Running Man TV show, Tina informs Barry that his nerve synapses, brainwaves, and whatnot are moving at an accelerated rate, like an accelerated man. Tina has Barry perform a car trick for her, but it's less fun than she thought, and Barry gets bored, so they go for pizza. Barry offers Tina a slice after eating 4 whole pies by himself. Jeez, maybe Iris is perfect for him. Barry feels like a disgusting glutton at how much he's eaten. Yet Tina says it's no big deal because
You're burning up so much energy, your body's demanding that you replace it.
he's concerned that this increased metabolism may cause him to age prematurely or result in his burning out. Tina offers her help in treating him, but advises that he not tell anyone about his condition or the government will take him in to be studied and try to copy his powers or classify him as a threat if he refuses to undergo experimentation. Her husband, David, discovered an enzyme that enhanced the senses, and when they were asked to start testing on human subjects before the process was perfected, he tried the enzyme on himself because as a scientist, he didn't think he was a human subject.
Wow.
Barry agrees to do things her way and says Earl is the only one who knows, and he's absolutely terrified of him now, so he won't say a thing. Tina is happy Barry has petrified his pet into compliance, suggests that Barry could be her life's work, but he ain't having it.
No, I didn't.
I want to be rid of this, and that's the deal.
We immediately cut to Barry's apartment, where he's feeding Earl dressed like he just returned from a job interview with Miami Vice. It's not what he was wearing in the previous scene, so who knows how much time has passed.
No, I know I'm in trouble. Even the kibble's starting to look good.
Through the kitchen window, Barry sees a car parked across the street. Oh, by the way, it's nighttime, and he realizes that neither the lab techs nor Tina are there to clean up his mess of an apartment. He puts a couple of things away and sees Iris getting closer, aware that she could have parked right in front of his building, but that wouldn't have given Barry enough time to react to her arrival. It's not like he can move at super speed. Oh wait, yes he can.
Of course!
Barry cleans and rearranges his disheveled home to whimsical music until he goes so fast he creates a tornado inside his living room that leaves a bigger mess than the one before.
Barry, we need to talk.
Uh-oh, that's never followed by good news. Barry explains his absence from her show and his visit with a specialist.
I've been having these blackouts.
Well, did you call the doctor?
Oh, yeah. I was with a specialist all afternoon.
Maybe we shouldn't see each other for a while.
Aw, poor Barry. His dad doesn't respect him, his dog is scared to death of him, he has powers he doesn't want, and now his Microsoft Paint girlfriend is breaking up with him. I really hope he gets that job in Miami. The guy needs a win. Back at the villain's swap meet, these gallons of water are lit up way better than everyone else in this scene. Lila casually walks up to Pike and says hi, but he's tired of unsolicited friend requests and puts a knife to her face. Fearing for her life, she says that she's found out about the task force, and then...
What did you find out?
The fuck? Why is the music so congratulatory? They just get married? So he threatens her, hears her one line of news, kisses her, and then asks what she found out. You know, maybe his followers are so afraid of him because of how he reacts to information they tell him.
What are you talking about? The man is a genius.
Lila says the police chief is going to show off the task force on TV at 9 p.m. that evening. Lila picks up a book that Pike says he wrote a long time ago. Oh, so that means Jay isn't the gang leader after all. Oh well, I was close. Back at the lab, Jay, clad in blue naval camouflage that will certainly help him blend into an urban environment, is close to making his first successful science project when Barry walks in wearing the same clothes from that evening? He finds out that Barry was dumped by Iris, and the beginning of a pointless conversation is interrupted by Julio, who's got a lead.
We may have a lead. The writers tore up Central City Mall last night, and one of them lost this. I got a hair sample.
Hey, great. I'm sent it to Chicago for DNA profile.
Hey, I'm way ahead of you. Just sign it.
Good man.
Julio then says Barry has a meeting with the head of the task force after the press conference, and we learn that Jay is the head of the task force.
Thanks.
Barry wishes him luck, but Jay suspects he's about to be written out of the story, so he isn't so happy. I guess the blue camouflage does work since there's blue lighting everywhere. The police chief hypes up the task force to the media in front of a building that must have inspired Batman Forever. Also, where the hell are all the street lamps? This crowd is just standing in the dark, making it impossible to see anything or anyone. Jay starts to speak about his dedication to the job when the Dark Riders show up and shoot up the place. Wait a minute, is that the same street from the intro? The Dark Riders attack the crowd while Central City's choice of green, blue, violet, flamingo, and yellow lights attack my eyesight. Chaos ensues as the police chief is hit and goes down. The Navy tries to retaliate, but the Dark Rider's taillights are already too far away. Jay examines a bike and sees that the fuel tank was struck, meaning no other motorcycles in the entire task force is functional, and a pursuit is totally out of the question, which is doubly sad because that fuel tank was only 1 day away from retirement.
Surprise, motherfucker!
Linda Park makes a triumphant comeback and asks Jay for a statement. Barry breaks up the interview before Jay goes overboard with the insult, but he's fuming mad. The Dark Riders attack just to show that they could do it. The gang is watching footage of their raid on the TV wall.
Oh, someone got hurt.
All right, let's get the
Something tells me her concern isn't sincere. Just then, Pike sees Jay threaten to bury them, and we learn that Jay is the one who gave Pike those very real scars that never look fake at all.
Now it's time for Commander Jay Allen to die.
Does he think Jay was in the TV? The sound of crashing glass competently transitions to the following day at Star Labs test track, where we see this show's love affair with tube television sets continues, even in the open air. Barry comes out from the Sprinter van wearing a red muscle suit, and I don't know about calling him the Flash, but you can call him the Stash, because he is packing a whole lot of something in that outfit. Hey, Tina, his eyes are up here. After a science mumbo-jumbo explanation, she hooks him up with some monitoring equipment. He takes off, power walking? But in an instant, he's near 500 miles an hour and his body movements look like he's actually running. Barry breaks the sound barrier and without a hint of guile, causes a sonic boom.
Barry?
Tina says she envies him and Barry scoops her up for a few laps around the track, sort of how Superman took flight with Lois, except that Tina will most likely suffer extreme dizziness accompanied by the urge to vomit and a neck-snapping case of whiplash once Barry stops running.
If I could save time in a bottle.
Thumbnail? As they're talking about his pulse, the suit's performance, and his feelings, Barry begins to lose his bearings and has to take a breather, but immediately recovers. Tina thinks it was a case of dehydration or a glucose deficiency and recommends they go back to the lab to get him checked out. At CCPD, it's 6:30 in the morning, at least I think it's still morning, because this scene follows the scene with Barry at the track, which was during daylight. Anyway, it's suggested that Julio has been there for a while and decides to leave, having grown tired of waiting for Barry. Wearing a shirt that was patterned after a bedsheet, Julio meets Tina and remarks to Barry how fast he's moving. Julio's DNA hair sample results are displayed as a barcode, which matches to former officer Nicholas Pike. What a twist! Oh wait, we already knew that. Barry explains that Pike was Jay's partner, but Pike was into all kinds of illicit stuff off duty, and Jay set him up to get busted using a semi-truck full of phony cargo on Highway 61. Pike showed up as expected, and when Jay gave chase, Pike's motorcycle crashed and burned. He was taken to prison hospital, where he escaped a few weeks later and was never seen again. Barry's gotta tell Jay. Julio says the task force got a tip that the Dark Riders were going to hit a semi-truck full of medical supplies on Highway 61 because Pike knows that revenge is a dish best served with irony. Tina cautions Barry not to try anything because they don't know what could happen. On the highway, the task force is escorting the truck when they spot a completely unsuspicious car blocking both lanes. Damn, the CCPD really doesn't believe in having more than one person approach a potentially dangerous situation. And again, why is the city so poorly lit in public spaces that the head of the task force has to get so close and use a flashlight to see someone? Lila says her engine died and Jay yells back to his guys to push the car. Then she tries to sweet talk him in this very stunted exchange.
You're not gonna leave me out here, are you?
Look, I'm not supposed to do this, but I'll radio in for a tow.
Oh, wow, thanks. I really appreciate it, thanks.
Lila hears the music cue and runs off the road, but by the time Jay warns his guys to get away from the car, it explodes. This guy carelessly drops his flashlight. I know a bus driver that could really use that if you don't want it. Jay rushes to check on his men as a lone motorcyclist jumps out the back of the trailer and rides directly towards Jay, who brought a shotgun to a stick fight and paid the price. Jay, apparently stunned from the 2x4 that lightly tapped him on his bulletproof vest, stood still, hoping he couldn't be seen. But the blue camouflage didn't fool the biker and he tackled Jay with the front of his motorcycle and pushed him down a very small hill.
Remember me?
I don't remember when I suffered all these bruises. The gunshot at the start of this running scene is either Jay being shot by Pike or the movie saying that Barry is running faster than a speeding bullet. Barry arrives at the carnage and sees Jay's lifeless body, so I guess a gunshot was Jay getting gunned down. Barry then lets out a scream that reminds you this is a program on network television. Anyway, cut to a tombstone that just says Alan. Again, is this the next day, a week later? This show is really playing it fast and loose with the passage of time. Dad is in mourning when Barry arrives, and we learn that it's been 1 day since the funeral. Barry talks about how Jay's wife and son are holding up, and Dad talks about how far Jay could have gone.
But your brother, he could have made chief. Could have been anything he wanted.
Barry tells him he's decided to find Pike himself, but Dad discourages Barry and says he should leave it up to the homicide detective. Barry ain't hearing that noise though.
If there's anything I try to teach you two boys, is that you don't fire a gun without a bullet in the chamber.
But if there's no bullet in the chamber, the gun won't fire anyway, so wisdom? Back to our old friend the diagnosticator. Tina is working on the first Fitbit app and looking at stuff when Barry shows up in a huff, demanding an end to the tests with a voice so rough it couldn't have been a bluff.
No more testing. No more games.
Barry proceeds to give her his requirements for a costume because even though Tina stole the suit he's wearing from the Russians, she's probably also a seamstress who can make him a hood and gloves. He tells her he's going to bring in Pike for murdering Jay.
Well, that's crazy. You're barely able to control your
Power? That's what you called it.
Yes, and a very unstable one. You came here asking to get rid of it.
Barry counters with,
I've changed my mind.
hard to argue that. Tina says in that case she won't help him and Barry says he'll do it without her. But 5 steps later, Tina says she'll do what he wants if she can place sensors in the suit to monitor his vitals. This upsets Barry for some reason, but he quickly calms down and accepts the terms. Also, he drew the flash symbol. It's nighttime and the bikers are taking an evening ride around Central City Chemicals in hopes they might see the origin of the joke, steal things. Even these towers have moonlighting. What's with this city? Pulling carts of extra neon green bottles of absinthe, the gang is looking to make a whole lot of trouble when Barry disconnects one of the carts that's full of cleaning products. This guy has to stop in order to pick up the items, and we can see that the rest of the gang has teleported to another part of the story. Barry runs past the lone rider, dismantles his motorcycle, and leaves the mess for him to clean up. That's our Barry. Barry catches up to the rest of the gang and puts a piece of wood in this one guy's front tire, causing him to crash to pieces. Coming out of the 80s and the DARE program, of course the don't do drugs sign would be well lit with regular lights.
What the hell happened to Bill and Steve? I don't know, man, but Pike said don't stop for nothing.
You can forget about Psycho or Razorblade. Bill and Steve are the 2 most intimidating names on the Dark Riders roster. Barry makes his first appearance in the red suit, and I'd argue that Tina's needlework is better than that of Arya Stark. The bikers see Barry standing there with a bar that appeared out of nowhere and is also conveniently long enough to knock these 2 riders off at the same time. And I guess the bar was actually Barry's health bar, as he loses strength momentarily while the other 2 bikers turn down an alley. Barry pursues them and pulls one off of the bike. He then has his speeding sound effect force the other rider to lose control in the middle of an intersection before he displays how fast he is and that there's no running from him. He wants to know where Pike's place is located, and he ain't talking about the coffee. He takes Lila's helmet off and is shocked a woman is in a biker gang because 1990s Flash is a super sexist. She takes advantage of his chauvinism by stabbing him in the leg and running away. Barry hobbles out of sight as one cop car suddenly arrives on the scene. With what's happened very recently to the police chief and Jay, why is CCPD still sending 1 cop car at a time? Also, how did they know to come to this location? Anyway, Lila gets arrested and Tina's looking for Barry, but since he can't speed his way out of there, he's looking for a change of clothes.
Come on, Barry. Where are you?
How the bloody hell does that help? Some fellow officers pick him up and tell him about the riders they were able to nab. Barry is surprised that Tina was following him around in her truck and he tells her about being stabbed.
Stabbed in the leg.
Well, how bad is it?
Well, the pain and stiffness are almost gone.
Well, that doesn't seem possible. I'd like to check it out.
Okay, come on up.
Tina gives Iris a credible excuse for her presence and leaves. Barry apologizes to Tina for the surprise when he should apologize for continuing to wear Grimace's flannel shirt. Barry and Iris bang out their differences, and then this.
I can't believe it was over so quickly.
Disappointed?
Well, yeah. After all that anticipation, why bother?
$20 for a fight that's over in 2 rounds.
Ha ha ha! Bang! The next day, or whatever, Barry works his way into the interrogation room to question Lila. Barry then tells her that if the cops don't find Pike, the Flash will, and that worries Lila, but she remains mum.
Where is he?
I can't. I can't tell you. I can't.
Take off her clothes. Send him to the crime lab.
At the villain's lair, they watch the news of the arrest before Pike shotguns one of the screens and vows to open the gates of hell, which is a crowd pleaser. Wait, so did the cops wait for a camera crew to show up, or did they repeat Lila's arrest after reporters arrived? Whatever, in Barry's lab, he finds one impossible to miss extra large piece of vegetation and puts it under a microscope when Julio comes in and says there was a soil match from what they found at the crime scene. Which crime scene he's referring to no longer matters because the computer matches the vegetation to a weed that grows in Central City. Anyway, Julio and Barry deduce that the plant and soil combination is at the reservoir, but Barry zooms off while Julio looks at the map and suggests they tell the detectives. When he looks up and doesn't see Barry, he wonders if he's got a case of the reefer madness. And by the looks of his many horrific shirts, he's definitely on something that's affecting his judgment. Two of the Dark Riders stayed back in the lair and Flash decides to play around with them.
I realize how an unhappy childhood probably led you to all this, but that's really no excuse.
Then he finds Jay's relay medal amongst Pike's things and gets extra upset. Murdering Jay is one thing, but taking the relay medal? That's just too far. Barry visits Chief Cooper and tells him where Pike's hideout is located, but that the gang isn't there. They're headed for the county jail and mean to break out their friends, which the chief doesn't believe for some reason.
Pike and his men are headed for the county jail. From what I can tell, they mean to break out their friends and anyone else who wants to come along.
That's a pretty wild story, Alan. You know, you've been under a lot of stress lately.
Sir, I know I'm just another fingerprint duster here. But if you don't trust me, trust this.
Because the medal has more credibility than he does? Come on, man, don't sell yourself so short. Finally, CCPD sends more than one cop car to a potentially dangerous encounter. Barry jogs to the trunk of his car and gets weak in the knees again and starts seeing crazy 90s filters before he struggles to his front seat and calls Tina for help. He then passes out. At the prison, I don't know, there's this explosion that doesn't seem to do anything and the bikers are riding through the halls untouched because there were only like 2 guards in the whole place. I mean, Central City must have a serious budget problem. The prisoners all get released and we learn that this corrective facility is actually co-ed, which is either very progressive or is due to the city's money woes not allowing them the funds to build a separate women's prison. Pike reunites with Lila.
I knew you'd come.
You all right?
Yeah.
Come on.
Where'd that guy come from? He wasn't out there before. Maybe he's off camera. He's gone. Nope. Wait, he's back again.
Pike, this is Chief Cooper. I'm giving you 60 seconds to come out of there.
Or we'll fill that building with so much tear gas you'll be crying for the rest of your life.
Pike ain't no crybaby, so he opens fire. We cut to Tina's truck. She's helped Barry recover from his metabolic failure with the signs of more mood lighting when they get into an argument over whether Barry will survive if he goes after Pike. He reminds her that he's not her husband, he'll survive.
You need my help.
Not this time.
Barry!
Who uses shotguns to shoot up at windows 3 stories high? CCPD does. This guy advises the cops retreat because they can't get close enough to launch the tear gas, and the chief says retreat is not an option. If Pike gets past them, he'll burn the city to the ground with those badasses Bill and Steve leading the way. Barry zooms by them, takes the tear gas and disarms the prisoners on the roof. These 2 guys think the cameraman took their guns, but it was Barry. He beats everyone up, then tosses the tear gas into the prison's ventilation system. Pike is telling the convicts to get ready to leave when the tear gas enters the common areas. He gets the one gas mask from a random room, then breaks up with Lila. Aww.
What are you talking about? The man is a genius.
As the building is flooded with harsh fumes, the cops prepare to move into the prison, and Barry pauses for his best Batman overlooking the city pose in time for one of the cops to spot him through binoculars. Pike rides his bike through the prison like a hoodlum might. And Jesus Christ, even the service tunnels have violet and blue lights? Why though? Flash runs ahead of Pike, then psychs him out, causing Pike to crash his bike. But he's alright. Just as Barry is about to say Jay's name, those weird 90s filters come back with a vengeance, and Pike uses a bar to beat Barry back into a cave that might have been a secret stage in Mortal Kombat. Barry tries to fight back, but he's knocked down into a subcellular tomb thing that, of course, also has violet lighting, because why not? Pike abandons his bike and takes a hike up a shaft that for no reason has blue light, and I bid all this unnecessary rhyming Godspeed and good night. Barry recovers and makes his way to the roof of a neighboring electric company, I guess, where Pike is trying to find a way down.
Remember me?
Pike doesn't like people who weren't at his ironic revenge scene to repeat the words he told his victim, so he fires the bazooka at Barry and misses wildly. as Barry easily speeds out of the way. The city gets plunged into darkness, which really isn't that far of a plunge, and the electricity, rather than naturally seeking a path to ground, rises up to the sky to create a version of the Flash symbol against the moon, which definitely didn't make more sense and done to greater effect in the first Tim Burton Batman movie. Pike was staring at the magnificence of nature being defied, and he felt a shock of kinship with the ridiculous, rebellious bolt of electricity he saw climbing into the air. He turned to Flash to say something profound, but instead got punched in the face repeatedly. Flash created a tornado that lifted Pike up to the tower's rods, and he watched Pike fry.
Finish it. Flawless victory. Fatality.
Barry then tied him up and left him on the roof where no one else knows he is, instead of taking him down to the cops for some reason. Tina chastises Barry for taking her distributor cap, and he apologizes as he was just trying to protect her. They decide to work together. 29 years later, Barry will remember this moment as he's dealing with the greatest crisis he's ever faced in his life.
I have faith in you.
Well, the truth is I have faith in you too.
The next morning, or whenever, Julio joins the Allen family for breakfast as they discuss Barry's coming citation for catching Pike, and they talk of the likelihood that the Flash exists. Meanwhile, Barry is out on the porch talking to his nephew, Jay's son, reassuring him that Uncle Barry will always be there for him.
Anytime you need me, but I'll be there in a flash.
The camera pans to the sky and we fade to white. Now, although running for an hour and a half, you have to keep in mind that this ending was supposed to be the introduction to a series on television, not a standalone movie. But everything seems to have been resolved by the time the credits roll. There's no new threat teased or new case that Barry will have to tackle. There's nothing that tells the audience, hey viewers, tune in next week to see what happens to our hero. It just sort of stops, and I was like, all right, I guess that's that, even though I know there were 20 more episodes in its one and only season. Disregarding the blatant attempts at mimicking the seriousness of the Michael Keaton Batman movie, John Wesley Shipp's The Flash is an innocent and interesting trip down memory lane that's just full of 80s cheese and 90s camp.
Barry Allen's hero's journey is very simplistic and fast.
Oh, excuse me. As I was saying, Barry Allen's hero's journey is very simplistic and fast. Pike is a very shallow villain. The cinematography was not so good. All of the colored lighting, though, the choices for the buildings didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Like, why would there be purple lights at the bottom of a sewer? Who's that for? And the fashion choices have that just distinct look of 90s terrible. But for the most part, that's what TV was in the 80s and early 90s. Uncomplicated, episodic, and very easy to follow. And perhaps it was the episodic nature of television at the time that explains why there wasn't a cliffhanger that teased the next installment.
In the adventures of Barry Allen.
Sorry, don't know what's coming over me. Anyway, The Flash was a show that I didn't watch when I was younger. However, I was so thoroughly entertained by this pilot that I'm going to finish the rest of the series as time allows. And I sincerely hope that you all enjoyed watching this review of
Well, that can be good.
I'll be back.
That's how the video ended? Oh, rude.